Narrator: the air inside the Tri-County auction house is thick with the scent of cold metal and dust. Fluorescent lights flicker above a crowd of eager, wealthy bidders. Narrator: Isaac Hartwell steps into the hall, his presence quiet yet heavy. His rugged features and worn leather jacket set him apart from the polished suits surrounding him. Narrator: on the podium, a fast-talking auctioneer gestures toward a forgotten corner of the warehouse. 17 rusted, derelict vehicles sit under heavy layers of grime and neglect. Narrator: Victoria Vance watches from the front row, a vision in navy blue and gold. Her blonde hair catches the artificial light as she leans back, projecting absolute power. Narrator: the auctioneer begins the bid for Lot 402, the scrap collection. He calls for $1,000, but the room remains silent, filled with mocking glances at the junk. Narrator: Victoria whispers to her assistant, a sharp smirk playing on her lips. She views the collection not as machines, but as a stain on her family's legacy. Narrator: Isaac's hand rises, holding the bidding paddle with steady fingers. His eyes remain fixed on the rusted lot, ignoring the curious and judging stares of the elite. Narrator: the auctioneer shouts out the price of $2,500. He scans the room for any challengers, but the wealthy bidders only offer soft, condescending laughter. Narrator: Victoria turns her head, her blue eyes locking onto Isaac's weathered face. She doesn't see a rival, she sees a fool throwing away his meager earnings on trash. Narrator: the gavel strikes the wooden block with a sharp, final crack. The 17 rusted silhouettes now belong to the man who looks like he has nothing left to lose. Narrator: at the clerk's desk, Isaac signs the release forms for the 17 vehicles. His rough hands move with steady precision over the paperwork. Narrator: a few feet away, a bystander raises a smartphone, recording the rugged man they believe just wasted his life savings on rusted metal. Narrator: Victoria Vance steps into the frame of the recording, offering a sharp, practiced smile. She loudly dubs the purchase a collection of worthless scrap. Narrator: Isaac hears the remark. He doesn't flush or argue. He simply turns and gives the arrogant CEO a single, unhurried nod. Narrator: tucking the receipt into his faded flannel pocket, he walks out of the warehouse, leaving the laughter behind without a single backward glance. Narrator: within hours, the 40-second clip spreads across the internet. The digital crowd relentlessly judges the quiet man in the green shirt. Narrator: in the back of her chauffeured sedan, Victoria briefly sees the viral clip on her phone. She locks her screen, dismissing him entirely. Narrator: miles away, evening shadows consume an industrial lot. Isaac's weathered truck pulls up to a heavy, corrugated metal garage on the edge of town. Narrator: inside, the air is thick with the smell of old engine oil. The 17 rusted silhouettes now rest in the dim, atmospheric space. Narrator: he bypasses the obvious classics and stops before the most ruined frame in the room. A small flashlight clicks on, piercing the gloom. Narrator: under the dim light of his workbench, Isaac opens a faded binder filled with decades of handwritten engineering notes carefully left by his late father. Narrator: the aged pages detail the lost Callahan prototype. A specific frame identifier is circled in faded ink, perfectly matching the exact alphanumeric sequence stamped into the ruined metal. Narrator: Isaac touches the cracked crystal of his father's broken mechanical watch on his wrist. He knows he is holding a ghost that corporate empires thought was dead. Narrator: by dawn, the heavy garage echoes with the rhythmic sound of solitary labor. Isaac immediately turns his methodical attention to a blistered 1967 Mustang chassis. Narrator: a harsh wire brush clears away years of accumulated decay on the firewall, revealing an original, unaltered production sequence. This single dormant asset is worth a small fortune. Narrator: miles away, the morning sun reflects sharply off the cold glass facade of Heartline Motors headquarters. Inside, a completely different kind of corporate machinery is quietly grinding to a halt. Narrator: Chief Legal Counsel Adrian Cole anxiously reviews a towering stack of litigation documents. A massive $200 million federal lawsuit entirely hinges on one single missing piece of physical evidence. Narrator: Adrian stares intensely at a grainy archived photograph from the 1980s. It clearly displays the distinctive roofline of the very Callahan prototype that Isaac uncovered just the night before. Narrator: Victoria Vance enters the legal office with her usual sharp, commanding elegance. She demands absolute certainty for the upcoming federal hearing, completely unaware of her own recent critical error. Narrator: Adrian cautiously delivers the bitter truth to his superior. The existing documentary evidence remains ambiguous, and without the original physical chassis, their entire legal position is dangerously fragile. Narrator: Desperate for a lead, Adrian initiates a comprehensive search through regional salvage databases, hoping the lost prototype recently surfaced in a liquidation sale. Narrator: A digital match suddenly populates the screen. The Tri-County Auto Salvage Registry lists a lot containing an unidentified V8 development chassis. Narrator: Adrian clicks the attached image file. A low-resolution photograph reveals the unmistakable geometry of the Callahan frame, half buried under a collapsed tarp. Narrator: A cold realization strikes the veteran lawyer. He opens a new tab and navigates to the viral video clip that had circulated through the executive team. Narrator: The 40-second recording plays. It shows Victoria delivering her sharp, mocking judgment toward the quiet buyer in the faded green flannel shirt. Narrator: Adrian pauses the playback. There, in the blurred background of the frame, sits the exact rusted silhouette they desperately need to secure their corporate empire. Narrator: The color drains from Adrian's face. The physical evidence required to win the massive lawsuit now belongs to the man his CEO had publicly underestimated. Narrator: Miles across the city, completely detached from the impending corporate panic, Isaac continues his meticulous labor. He carefully polishes the chrome bumper of a vintage Pontiac. Narrator: The restored metal gleams under the warm garage lights, perfectly reflecting the quiet, unshakable focus of a man who knows exactly what he possesses. Narrator: Back in the towering glass skyscraper, Adrian prints the auction record. He stares at the paper, bracing himself to deliver the impossible news to Victoria. Narrator: Adrian walks down the long, sterile hallway toward the executive suite. The printed auction record in his hand feels heavier than a death sentence. Narrator: He enters Victoria's expansive corner office and places the document directly onto her immaculate desk, breaking the morning silence with a heavy sigh. Narrator: Victoria scans the paperwork. Her sharp, confident expression falters for a fraction of a second as she reads the buyer's registration details. Narrator: The arrogant CEO finally understands the depth of her miscalculated judgment. The man she publicly mocked now holds the keys to her empire. Narrator: She immediately orders a discreet acquisition. By noon, a sleek black corporate sedan glides quietly into the rough, dusty roads of the industrial district. Narrator: Two corporate intermediaries step out of the vehicle. Dressed in sharp suits, they look entirely out of place against the backdrop of rusted metal. Narrator: Inside the dim garage, Isaac hears the tires crunch on the gravel. He slowly wipes engine oil from his hands, fully expecting this arrival. Narrator: The men enter the workspace with assumed authority. They glance around with clear disdain, their eyes searching for the hidden Callahan chassis. Narrator: They casually offer a modest sum for the scrap lot, pretending it is merely a routine part sourcing inquiry. Their execution is remarkably clumsy. Narrator: Isaac sees through the facade instantly. With absolute calm, he politely declines their offer, refusing to yield a single inch of his new leverage. Narrator: The corporate intermediaries retreat in complete failure. Their black sedan speeds away from the dusty industrial lot, leaving nothing but a cloud of dry dirt. Narrator: Isaac watches them leave from the shadowy entrance of his garage. His expression remains entirely neutral as he turns back to the real work. Narrator: he captures detailed photographs of the fully restored 1967 Mustang. The deep paint and polished chrome reflect a level of master craftsmanship rarely seen. Narrator: sitting at his workbench, he uploads the images to an exclusive online collectors network. He writes no elaborate sales pitch, relying purely on documented perfection. Narrator: the digital response is almost instantaneous. Private messages flood his inbox as elite collectors recognize the pristine quality of the previously mocked scrap metal. Narrator: by the weekend, a serious buyer from Detroit arrives at the garage. The wealthy collector spends nearly an hour meticulously inspecting every mechanical detail. Narrator: the buyer runs his fingers over the meticulously cleaned firewall. The original, verified serial number proves that Isaac's quiet expertise is absolute and undeniable. Narrator: without any hesitation or negotiation, the collector signs a check for $52,000, resting his pen directly against the gleaming blue hood. Narrator: Isaac looks down at the paper in his hand. His initial $2,500 purchase has already yielded a fortune, removing any financial pressure to compromise. Narrator: across town, the news of the failed acquisition reaches Victoria. Standing silently by her office window, she realizes her quiet opponent cannot be easily intimidated. Narrator: with his financial foundation secured, Isaac directs his attention to the empty engine cavity of a 1969 Pontiac. Narrator: using the newly acquired funds, he takes delivery of a period-correct replacement engine, sourced discreetly from a private contact in St. Louis. Narrator: the massive block of polished metal is carefully lowered into the chassis. The mechanical resurrection proceeds with methodical precision. Narrator: the quiet work is interrupted by a courier. He carries a thick, heavy envelope bearing the unmistakable embossed seal of Hartwell Motors. Narrator: Isaac opens the document. It is a formal letter drafted by Adrian Cole, designed to apply maximum legal pressure through complex corporate terminology. Narrator: the pages cite language regarding property potentially subject to evidentiary considerations in pending litigation. It is a thinly veiled attempt to force compliance. Narrator: Isaac reads the aggressive demands. Instead of yielding to the intimidation, his expression remains utterly unbothered. He recognizes desperation when he sees it. Narrator: later that afternoon, he presents the imposing corporate letter to a local, experienced attorney operating out of a modest downtown office. Narrator: the attorney reviews the threats and offers a dismissive smile. He confirms that without a formal court order, the corporate demands are entirely a bluff. Narrator: Isaac pays the consultation fee and steps back out into the fading daylight. The corporate giant has overplayed its hand, cementing Isaac's absolute advantage. Narrator: returning to the quiet sanctuary of his garage, Isaac retrieves a sleek corporate business card that had slipped from the threatening legal envelope. Narrator: without hesitation, he dials the direct private line of Hartwell Motors' chief legal counsel. He intends to establish the true boundaries of this negotiation. Narrator: miles away, Adrian Cole answers his desk phone. He expects a panicked capitulation from the mechanic, but is instead met with absolute, calculated silence. Narrator: Isaac speaks first, his voice steady. He reveals that intermediaries from a rival corporation had already offered him a fortune to permanently hide the chassis. Narrator: the revelation strikes Adrian like a physical blow. The rival company is actively attempting to sabotage the impending federal hearing. Narrator: Isaac clarifies his position. He has already rejected the rival offer, refusing to participate in corporate sabotage, but he will not be bullied by Hartwell either. Narrator: confused by the sudden transparency, Adrian cautiously asks why the mechanic would surrender such massive leverage instead of exploiting the situation for maximum profit. Narrator: Isaac answers simply, stating he has no interest in winning by forcing someone else into unnecessary ruin. The line clicks dead. Narrator: Adrian lowers the receiver slowly. The corporate lawyer realizes they are negotiating with a man completely immune to traditional tactics of fear and greed. Narrator: he immediately relays the conversation to Victoria. The arrogant CEO is forced to recognize that her opponent operates on a vastly superior moral and strategic level. Narrator: to finalize the Mustang sale, Isaac drives the brilliantly restored blue vehicle out of the shadowy garage and directly into the morning sunlight. Narrator: he arrives at an exclusive collectors gathering in the city. It is a quiet event designed for purists who value absolute historical accuracy over flashy aesthetics. Narrator: as soon as the engine cuts off, a crowd gathers. The attendees immediately recognize the meticulous, period-correct restoration that defines genuine master craftsmanship. Narrator: among the attendees is a journalist who had previously covered the viral auction video. He instantly recognizes the rugged man in the flannel shirt. Narrator: the journalist captures new photographs, documenting the undeniable truth. The man who had been publicly mocked as a fool was, in reality, a quiet genius. Narrator: Isaac answers technical questions from the collectors with calm precision. He never boasts, simply letting the mechanical perfection of his work speak for itself. Narrator: the journalist rapidly drafts a follow-up article on his tablet. The story no longer requires any embellishment, the undeniable mathematical facts dictate the narrative. Narrator: by early evening, the new headline circulates online. The internet marvels at the $2,500 scrap purchase that instantly yielded a $52,000 masterpiece. Narrator: inside her isolated corporate office, Victoria reads the glowing coverage. The public narrative is shifting aggressively, eroding her previously unshakable authority. Narrator: back at his workbench, Isaac updates his financial projections. With nearly $200,000 secured from the secondary vehicles, he is practically untouchable. Narrator: the deadline for the federal hearing draws closer. The towering glass structure of Hartwell Motors feels less like a fortress and more like a cage. Narrator: Adrian Cole convenes a crisis meeting with his legal department. The team frantically attempts to construct a strategy to acquire the chassis without surrendering total control. Narrator: the calendar displayed on the monitor offers no comfort. With only days remaining until the court date, their documentary defense is completely unviable. Narrator: out of options, Adrian drafts a formal, structured acquisition offer. He proposes $75,000, hoping a significant sum will tempt the rugged mechanic. Narrator: a high-end logistics courier delivers the heavy corporate package directly to the industrial lot, requiring a signature for the aggressive legal proposal. Narrator: Isaac opens the box under the warm light of his workbench. He reads the $75,000 offer with the same detached calmness he applies to rusted metal. Narrator: he does not call to negotiate. He simply drops the multi-page contract onto the wooden bench, letting it rest beside his father's faded engineering notes. Narrator: back in the corporate tower, Adrian sits anxiously by his phone. The hours tick by, but the expected call of capitulation never arrives. Narrator: the absolute silence from the garage is deafening. Victoria is briefed on the rejection, realizing that money alone holds no power over this particular opponent. Narrator: staring out into the night, the CEO finally accepts the inevitable. To save her empire, she must step out of her glass tower and enter his world. Narrator: on the 29th day, Victoria leaves the corporate tower early. She deliberately leaves her commanding navy blazer resting on the back of her office chair. Narrator: dismissing her usual chauffeur, she drives an unassuming gray sedan herself, navigating away from the polished financial district toward the gritty industrial edges of the city. Narrator: as the late afternoon light turns flat and golden, the gray sedan pulls up outside the weathered corrugated metal walls of Isaac's garage. Narrator: Victoria steps out into the dust. Without her corporate armor, she stands entirely out of her element, yet completely resolute in her desperate mission. Narrator: Inside the expansive workspace, Isaac is under the chassis of the blue Pontiac on a rolling creeper. The sharp sound of the sedan door echoing alerts him. Narrator: Victoria pauses at the open bay door. She takes in the careful arrangement of meticulously restored vehicles, a stark contrast to her previous assumptions about the buyer. Narrator: Hearing the distinct shift in ambient sound, Isaac casually pushes off the floor, sliding out from beneath the heavy metal frame without any sense of urgency. Narrator: He registers her presence immediately. If he is surprised to see the arrogant CEO standing in his territory, his face absolutely refuses to show it. Narrator: He stands and methodically wipes the fresh engine grease from his hands. He notes he had wondered when she would arrive herself, an observation rather than a challenge. Narrator: Victoria stands frozen in the doorway. She realizes immediately that every negotiation tactic she had meticulously prepared is entirely useless in this room. Narrator: Attempting to regain control, Victoria opens the negotiation with a practiced corporate tone. She offers $15,000 for the unidentified frame, expecting immediate compliance. Narrator: Isaac looks at her without a trace of emotion. He simply says no, his voice as flat and unyielding as the concrete floor beneath them. Narrator: Victoria quickly recalibrates, attempting to mask her growing unease. She aggressively raises the offer to $50,000, a sum meant to overwhelm a common mechanic. Narrator: Isaac declines again with the exact same simplicity. It becomes painfully clear that this is not a man holding out for a blindly higher number. Narrator: Stripped of her usual leverage, Victoria changes her approach. Her voice loses its executive edge as she asks what exactly he knows about the vehicle. Narrator: Without answering, Isaac crosses the garage floor. He stops at the far corner where the shapeless, rusted frame of the Callahan prototype rests under a heavy tarp. Narrator: He reaches out and slowly folds back one edge of the canvas. The corroded metal of the lost historical artifact is exposed to the fading light. Narrator: Isaac clicks on a harsh work light and aims it directly at the chassis rail. The original identification stamp emerges sharply from the decades of grime. Narrator: Victoria reads the alphanumeric code. She remains completely silent for several seconds, staring at the absolute proof of her company's salvation and her own failure. Narrator: Isaac holds the light steady, studying her face as she processes the reality. He confirms calmly that he knows it is the only one in existence. Narrator: Her voice entirely stripped of its executive arrogance, Victoria asks a simple, quiet question. She asks why he refuses to sell. Narrator: Isaac clicks off the harsh work light and deliberately pulls the heavy canvas tarp back over the rusted metal frame, hiding the corporate salvation in darkness. Narrator: He turns to face her, his posture relaxed but commanding. He states that he knows exactly what the chassis is worth to Heartline Motors, and he knows that she knows it too. Narrator: Victoria drops her gaze for a fraction of a second, silently conceding her complete defeat. She asks plainly what he requires to release the asset. Narrator: Isaac steps away from the car and gestures toward his workbench. He points to the faded, heavily annotated binders left behind by his father. Narrator: He reveals the true origin of his knowledge. He speaks of a man who spent 3 decades respecting the quiet dignity of engineering over the loud pursuit of profit. Narrator: Victoria listens carefully, realizing this negotiation transcends money. Isaac finally states his price, $985,000 for the frame. Narrator: The CEO instinctively opens her mouth to negotiate the figure, a reflex built from years in the corporate boardroom, but Isaac raises a hand to stop her. Narrator: He adds a second, absolute condition. Heartline Motors must fund a local vocational training program in classic auto restoration, contributing $50,000 annually. Narrator: Victoria stares at him, completely stunned. She has negotiated with billionaires, but she has never encountered a demand structured purely for the preservation of a craft. Narrator: Victoria struggles to comprehend a demand not rooted in corporate greed or personal leverage. The sheer integrity of the request leaves her temporarily speechless. Narrator, regaining her composure, she asks why he doesn't demand a public apology for the humiliation she caused at the auction. It is a debt she knows she owes. Narrator, Isaac shakes his head slowly. He states he doesn't need empty words, noting that she already realized she was wrong before she even stepped into his garage. Narrator, a subtle shift occurs in Victoria's expression. The hardened corporate CEO finally lets her guard down, silently acknowledging her own profound arrogance. Narrator, without another word of negotiation, she extends her hand across the space separating them. It is a genuine gesture of respect and total agreement. Narrator, Isaac meets her gesture, shaking her hand with a firm, steady grip. The bitter conflict dissolves into a moment of undeniable, mutual equity. Narrator, Isaac calls his friend Connor to serve as a witness for his side, while Victoria summons Adrian Cole to draft the immediate legal paperwork. Narrator, within the hour, Adrian arrives at the dusty industrial lot. The veteran lawyer looks utterly bewildered to be conducting a $1 million corporate acquisition inside a rusty garage. Narrator, Connor stands by the garage entrance, a silent guardian of Isaac's territory, watching the corporate executives operate entirely under his friend's terms. Narrator, under the warm glow of the workbench lamp, a handwritten agreement is drafted. It is late into the night as the balance of power is officially documented. Narrator, the morning after the agreement, a specialized logistics team carefully loads the heavy, rusted Callahan chassis onto a secure corporate transport vehicle. Narrator, 16 days later, the massive stone pillars of the federal courthouse loom over the city, setting the stage for a $200 million legal battle. Narrator, inside the wood-paneled courtroom, the opposing legal team confidently presents their defense, relying entirely on the manufactured ambiguity of old corporate documents. Narrator, Adrian Cole rises from the plaintiff's table. Projecting absolute legal certainty, he introduces the newly acquired material evidence to the federal judge. Narrator, high-resolution photographs of the chassis and its unmistakable identification stamp are displayed on the courtroom monitors, instantly destroying the opposition's defensive narrative. Narrator, the federal judge, a stern veteran of corporate law, carefully reviews the unbroken chain of provenance meticulously reconstructed from Carter Hartwell's archived notes. Narrator, the opposing executives realize their position has completely collapsed. The definitive physical proof leaves absolutely no room for further legal manipulation or doubt. Narrator, with a decisive strike of the wooden gavel, the judge issues the final ruling. The rival corporation is ordered to cease production immediately. Narrator, sitting at the front table, Victoria Vance secures the massive corporate victory she fought for, yet she remains unusually quiet and deeply reflective. Narrator, outside the imposing courthouse, Adrian Cole celebrates the monumental legal triumph with his team, unaware of the profound personal shift within his superior. Narrator, that evening, the Heartline legal team hosts a lavish celebration dinner at an upscale restaurant. Noticeably absent from the head of the table is Victoria Vance. Narrator, declining the corporate festivities, she drives herself home in the gray sedan. The passing streetlights illuminate a face forever changed by a profound humbling. Narrator, standing alone in her luxury apartment, Victoria looks out over the sprawling city. The crushing weight of her previous arrogance has finally been lifted, replaced by quiet clarity. Narrator, 3 weeks after the ruling, a journalist arrives at the executive office. The scheduled interview focuses on the successful litigation outcome and the future of Heartline Motors. Narrator, near the end of the session, the journalist pivots. He asks a direct question regarding the viral auction video and the mysterious mechanic who secured their victory. Narrator, in the corner of the room, her public relations team shifts nervously.
Excuse me, we need to stop.
They prepare to intercept the question with a carefully crafted, sterile corporate response. Narrator, Victoria raises her hand, silently dismissing her communications team. She leans forward, choosing to deliver an answer entirely unreviewed by corporate strategists. Narrator, she admits publicly to making a deeply inaccurate assessment, clarifying that her error was not about the value of the machinery, but the value of the man. Narrator, the journalist stops typing for a fraction of a second, surprised by the unprecedented executive transparency, before rapidly entering the remarkable quote into his tablet. Narrator, the article is published without her name attached to the pull quote, exactly as she preferred. The words serve as a quiet, enduring testament to her transformation. Narrator, 6 weeks after the historic agreement, the doors of Columbus Trades open to a newly funded program. The vocational school buzzes with renewed, focused energy. Narrator, 12 enrolled students form the inaugural cohort of the Classic Auto Restoration course. They gather eagerly around a stripped, weathered chassis in the main workshop. Narrator, the rigorous curriculum completely rejects modern cosmetic shortcuts. Instead, it demands full disassembly, structural evaluation, and authentic, period-correct engineering practices. Narrator, Isaac visits the facility during the first semester. He arrives not as a formal instructor or guest speaker, but simply as a master of the craft. Narrator, walking quietly through the busy shop, he stops when a young student asks a highly specific, complex question regarding a heavily corroded suspension component. Narrator, Isaac examines the rusted metal with deep focus. He treats the student's inquiry with the utmost respect, validating the young man's dedication to the work. Narrator, he delivers the answer directly and without any simplification. He assumes the student is entirely capable of handling the full, technical truth of the machine. Narrator, the young man listens intently, absorbing the unvarnished knowledge. The interaction perfectly mirrors the profound way Carter Hartwell had once taught his own son. Narrator, resting his hand on the chassis, the cracked crystal of his father's broken watch catches the harsh workshop light, symbolizing a legacy successfully passed down. Narrator, his quiet duty fulfilled, Isaac walks out of the vocational center into the bright afternoon sun. He leaves the future of the craft in capable hands. Narrator, the 1969 Pontiac is the absolute last vehicle from the original auction lot remaining in Isaac's possession. Narrator, he completes the exhaustive mechanical restoration exactly 4 days after the federal hearing concludes, moving the chassis into the painting bay. Narrator, he applies a flawless coat of deep metallic blue paint, restoring the vehicle to its exact original factory specification. Narrator, Isaac rolls the completed masterpiece out of the dark garage and into the crisp morning light, letting the fresh chrome catch the sun. Narrator, he chose this specific color code not because it increased the resale value, but for a profoundly personal, hidden reason. Narrator, resting on the workbench is an open binder. Pinned to the aged paper is a faded, slightly damaged photograph dated 1974. Narrator, the old picture shows Carter Hartwell standing proudly beside a car of the exact same make, model, and striking metallic blue color. Narrator, in the vintage photograph, Carter squints against the bright sun, wearing the deeply satisfied expression of a man who just completed a masterwork. Narrator, Isaac looks down at the faded image in his rough hands, then looks up to see the exact same vehicle standing before him. Narrator, Connor stands quietly in the background, observing the profound moment. He remains completely silent, knowing that some emotional symmetry requires no narration whatsoever. Narrator, by the end of the 30th day following the Tri-County auction, Isaac sits alone at his dimly lit workbench, finalizing his careful accounting. Narrator, the handwritten ledger reveals the undeniable truth. The total receipts from the original $2,500 purchase now stand at exactly $278,000. Narrator, he folds the notepad securely into his father's thick engineering binder. The massive financial return has officially permanently altered the trajectory of his life. Narrator, the next morning, Isaac meets with the property owner of the industrial lot, arriving not as a temporary renter, but as a serious investor. Narrator, using a portion of his newly acquired capital, he signs a long-term commercial lease and outright purchases the heavy lifting equipment he had been renting. Narrator: proceeding to the local state registry, he files formal paperwork to establish a permanent corporate entity, legitimizing his profound mechanical expertise. Narrator: a local printing shop delivers a small, heavy cardboard box. Inside rests the first official professional credential Isaac has held in his adult life. Narrator: he pulls a single, thick card from the box. The clean, embossed lettering proudly displays the newly registered name, Hartwell Restoration. Narrator: returning to the garage, he places a small stack of the crisp cards onto the corner of his workbench, directly beside his father's archived notes. Narrator: they sit there quietly under the warm desk lamp. The cards remain waiting, a humble but unshakable foundation built entirely from discarded history. Narrator: with his business officially established and his financial future secured, Isaac turns his attention back to the gleaming blue Pontiac. Narrator: despite its massive market value, he makes a quiet, definitive choice. He will not sell the masterpiece that perfectly mirrors his father's legacy. Narrator: slowly and deliberately, he pushes the heavy vehicle toward the back corner of the expansive garage, securing it in a dedicated, protected space. Narrator: resting in the shadows, the deep metallic blue paint and the polished chrome look exactly right under the ambient industrial lighting. Narrator: he opens the heavy driver's side door, allowing the scent of fresh, period-correct leather to fill the quiet air. Narrator: unhurried, Isaac unbuckles the worn leather strap from his left wrist, sliding his father's broken mechanical watch from his arm. Narrator: he reaches into the pristine interior and carefully sets the timepiece face up on the dashboard, right where the defroster grid meets the glass. Narrator: the cracked crystal, the stopped hands, and the worn crown rest in the sunlight. It is not repaired, nor hidden, but simply present. Narrator: Isaac steps back, crossing his arms over his chest. He looks at the monument he has built, a quiet tribute to the man who taught him everything. Narrator: some things are kept not because they function perfectly, but because of what they deeply and undeniably represent to those who know how to look. Narrator: 1 year later, the classic auto restoration program at Columbus Trades has evolved into the most prestigious vocational course in the state. Narrator: the inaugural cohort of 12 students prepares for their final practical examinations, applying the rigorous methods demanded by their curriculum. Narrator: the young student Isaac had previously advised stands before a fully reconstructed vintage engine, making the final, delicate adjustments to the carburetor. Narrator: Isaac watches quietly from the back of the workshop. He observes the young mechanic's steady hands and absolute focus with profound pride. Narrator: the student turns the ignition key. After a tense second of silence, the engine roars to life, holding a perfect, steady idle. Narrator: the workshop erupts in spontaneous applause. The surrounding students gather to admire the flawless mechanical resurrection achieved by their peer. Narrator: Isaac steps forward and offers a single, firm nod to the young man. It is the ultimate acknowledgement, welcoming him into the brotherhood of craftsmen. Narrator: outside the brick facility, parked quietly across the bustling street, sits the unassuming gray sedan belonging to the CEO of Heartline Motors. Narrator: Victoria Vance watches the celebration from the driver's seat. She observes the tangible, enduring results of the agreement she signed a year ago. Narrator: a genuine, uncalculated smile crosses her face. She shifts the vehicle into drive and pulls away, satisfied that true value goes far beyond corporate ledgers. Narrator: back at Hartwell Restoration, the facility has transformed entirely. The dusty, dim warehouse is now a pristine, state-of-the-art sanctuary for mechanical preservation. Narrator: Isaac works meticulously on a new commission. His reputation for uncompromising authenticity has attracted elite collectors from across the globe. Narrator: Connor, now a formal partner wearing a clean uniform, expertly operates a high-end diagnostic station, ensuring every electrical component meets absolute perfection. Narrator, the office phone rings. An international client offers a massive financial premium to bypass the shop's strict 3-year waiting list. Narrator, with polite firmness, Isaac declines the rush offer. He refuses to compromise his meticulous process, proving that his integrity simply cannot be bought. Narrator, hanging up the receiver, he returns to the metal shaping station, feeding a sheet of raw aluminum through a heavy English wheel. Narrator, across the bay, brilliant sparks fly as Connor welds a custom structural bracket. The workshop operates as a synchronized symphony of skilled labor. Narrator, a heavy transport truck pulls into the driveway, delivering a crate of incredibly rare, verified original components sourced directly from a private estate. Narrator, Isaac inspects the newly arrived parts with an exacting eye. Only materials meeting his father's rigorous historical standards are allowed into the facility. Narrator, the thriving enterprise stands as a testament to authentic value. It is an empire built not on corporate leverage, but on unwavering craftsmanship. Narrator, evening slowly descends over Hartwell restoration. The heavy hum of industrial machinery finally gives way to the quiet, settled peace of a productive day's end. Narrator, Connor powers down the central compressor and waves a silent goodbye, leaving the massive garage to the man who built it all from discarded scrap. Narrator, Isaac stands at the deep industrial sink, methodically washing the thick grease from his hands, the very same hands that were publicly mocked just months ago. Narrator, drying his hands on a rough cloth, he walks the length of the spotless floor toward the shadowed back corner of the pristine facility. Narrator, the gleaming blue Pontiac rests exactly where he left it. Through the windshield, his father's broken mechanical watch remains perfectly still on the dashboard. Narrator, it all started with a $2,500 bid in a cold, judging auction house. A purchase dismissed as a foolish collection of worthless, rusted metal. Narrator, that single, quiet decision had dismantled a massive corporate hierarchy, saved an empire, and permanently established a legacy of authentic, uncompromising craftsmanship. Narrator, Isaac pulls the heavy chain on the main bay doors, locking the sanctuary for the night. He steps out into the cool evening air. Narrator, despite his immense new wealth, he climbs into the same weathered, reliable truck he drove on the day of the auction. He never changed who he was. Narrator, the truck's headlights cut through the darkness as he drives toward home. The true value of a person, ultimately, is measured by what they build.